Guys, there are spoilers for this film and this review. So, if you don't want to be slain in the Coliseum, go watch the film and come back. You have been warned.
Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, Ron HD. So yeah, this is going to be a great time. Hey guys, welcome back to an episode of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your HD, and this week we watched Gladiator 2, starring Paul Mescal, I don't know. But either way, this film was a sequel to the Gladiator film starring Russell Crowe that came out 20 years ago. And I will say, this movie was not as good as Gladiator 1, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was fun, a good time, it was entertaining, but I feel like it repeated some of the same beats from the first one. But before I go on a whole tangent about why I thought this film was pretty good, I'll tell you why I thought that and more back at the house.
Strength and honor. I don't fight for power. I fight the free road for men like them.
Your name will be forgotten.
To restore order, I must have power.
Everything is forgotten in time. Empires fall, so do emperors.
This is war! Real war! The gods have spoken!
Hey guys, welcome back to an episode of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, HD, and this week we watched Gladiator 2. It is directed by Ridley Scott, who directed the first film, starring Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington, and Pedro Pascal. Now, if you have not seen the first Gladiator, maybe go out and watch it. Obviously, this film has a lot of connections to the first one, so just gonna get that out of the way. I will say, though, right off the bat, I think this film was not as good as the first one. Honestly, it was kind of disappointing because the film was kind of just like the first film again, but kind of a little bit different and not as good, right? Like, the original Gladiator is like an iconic, like, classic movie for a reason, right? I mean, it's a good movie. I mean, like, a lot of people like it, and it's just good. Like, the performances of Joaquin Phoenix, especially, are really good, and, like, the emotional moments hit well, you know, like, the moments where Russell Crowe gets to just, like, be a badass and, like, kill people and say, my name is Maximus Decimus Meridius. You know, he gets to do cool shit, right? Like, but I think in this film, it's just, like, I'm not a huge fan of Russell Crowe. Obviously, I think he's kind of whatever. As an actor, I don't have anything against him. He's not really, like, my top choice. Like, if I were to have, like, a action movie or, like, a movie like this, like, not adventure, I don't know how to describe it, but you know what I mean, like a historical fiction type drama film, Russell Crowe would not be my first pick. Although I do think he did a good job in the first film, he's still Russell Crowe. So... But, I'm just joshing, he's fine. But, this film, as I said, I just think it just is kind of like the first movie, but just not as good. And I think the main reason is the villain and the protagonist, like the antagonist and the protagonist. Like, the reason Joaquin worked in the first film was because he had a connection with Russell Crowe, right? Like, they were basically brothers, right? They knew each other when they were kids. You know, they grew up together. And they were basically, like, the sons of Marcus Aurelius, right? Pretty much. But Joaquin was hungry for power. You know, he was bloodthirsty. He was greedy, right? And he was, you know, a tyrant. And he was narcissistic, he was egotistical, and he couldn't handle the fact that his father picked Russell Crowe over him. So he killed his father, attempted to kill Russell Crowe, and take the throne. And, as I said, it worked because there was, like, a personal vibe there. And again, I think it's, like, Denzel's an amazing actor. I think he's one of the best actors of his generation, right? He is an incredible actor. And Joaquin is, too. Right? In a movie like this, you have to get incredible, like, world-class actors like Joaquin and Denzel to play these type of characters. But I don't know, I feel like the direction with Denzel in this movie was kind of off, right? Like, sometimes his delivery felt weird, like, sometimes he would say lines strange, and I think that is not Denzel's fault, that is the direction. And I think Joaquin was just directed way better, and I think it's funny because it was directed by the same person. What that says about Ridley Scott is up for you to decide. But I've made my mind. But I think Joaquin does a better performance, not because necessarily he's a better actor than Denzel, but because the directing was better, and I think he was able to, accentuate the character more. And obviously his character was a little more over the top, a little more kind of like evil, he would like kill kids and shit. I think he did at one point, didn't he? Like, yeah, he did like order his family to be murdered, so technically he did kill a kid. Yeah, like he was super evil, right? But Denzel's I like Denzel's character because he's kind of like the other side. He's more calm, collected, right? Like he's like the puppeteer, like making all his plans so that he can become the Emperor of Rome to destroy it from the inside as revenge for being a slave to Marcus Aurelius, right? Or under Marcus Aurelius's rule. And he did all that to get revenge and destroy the Aurelius bloodline and kill all of them. Which is great, but aside from the fact that he was a slave to Marcus Aurelius, which was Paul Mescal's character's grandfather, they don't have that much of a personal connection, right? And I think, obviously, I just don't think that, obviously the fight scene isn't as good, because, like, Denzel's like an old man fighting like a 20-year-old dude. Like, really, it shouldn't have even been close, honestly. Denzel should have just gotten his ass kicked, because he's an old dude. Like, yeah, he has a sword, and I don't know, it just didn't really make sense to me. I mean, I don't mean to disrespect Denzel, but his character, not Denzel himself, was like this old bureaucrat, right? Like, he's not, or like, he's like a gladiator, like, buyer politician. Like, you shouldn't, and he's like older, so why is he able to fight off this gladiator, man? Like, how is he able to do that? And like overpower him? Like, how the fuck are you able to do that, dude? Like, obviously, if we're talking about Equalizer Denzel now, we're talking about a different Denzel, but this is not that Denzel, so it's different. I don't know, it's weird. And obviously the ending fight in Gladiator 1 had more stakes because Russell Crowe died. He died in the first film. Even though he killed Joaquin, yeah, he still died. So the ending of the film was kind of more tragic. I feel like Gladiator 1 was more of a tragedy than anything, right? If you could call it that. But this film felt more like your average kind of like period piece, kind of like ancient story, like kind of like hero's quest, like hero's journey, right? Like, it's not really tragic because, I mean, yeah, his mom dies, like some people he knows dies, but I mean, like, his brothers, his gladiator brothers, they seem fine, most of them. Most of them. Like, I remember there was one guy who'd been with him, like, since the beginning. Like, he seemed close with him. That was, like, his, like, I remember there was a scene where, like, literally, where, like, he acknowledged him, like, differently than he did the other guys. They didn't really, I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't know, I'm going off on a tangent, what the fuck? My point is, the villains, I think Joaquin was better, as I said, not because Denzel's bad or anything, or was worse, but because I think Joaquin fit better in the story. I think he was a better fit as the villain, and I think, obviously, an emperor being the villain makes sense, right? Like, there were emperors in this movie, the twin emperors, and they were real. Geta, and what was the other one? Corellis, was that his name? I'm sorry if I said that wrong. I don't know. I know Geta, but I don't know the other one. It's a C name and an Ellis. But, correct me if I'm wrong, which I probably am. But, they were real emperors back in the day. And of course, Geta was ordered to be murdered by his brother. because they only shared leadership for like 2 years, and they couldn't stand each other. So they got sick of each other, right? And eventually Geto was killed by his brother, or like ordered to be killed by his brother. And his brother was a massive tyrant, right? Actually, he's said to be one of the worst, most tyrannical leaders in Rome's history, or at least that's how the ancient historians put it. Which might be biased, but again, it's Roman emperors, so it's probably not very biased, because they were mostly terrible, and that's why almost every single one of them were assassinated. But, yeah, he was terrible in this, but I also think reading about him and then seeing him in this, it seems like obviously they changed stuff up, because Denzel's character was not a real person. This was obviously historical fiction. Like, this didn't go down this way. Right? This didn't go to... Maximus Decimus Meridius is not a real person. He was never a real person. He was a fictional character in the story. Right? Made for a movie and a story. But I also think that's obvious at this point. Like, you're not watching a movie like this for historical accuracy. Mostly. I mean, obviously you want it to be close, but you don't need it to be exact. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them changing it up a little. But I do think, though, as I said, that... I don't know, there's just something about this film that just, like, fell off the mark. You know what I mean? Like, there was something about it that it almost got there. Almost! But just couldn't quite get it. You know, it couldn't quite hit the mark. And that's so unfortunate, because I like the original Gladiator. I think it's a good movie, and I enjoy it. As I said, the performances are some of the most, like, notable things about it. And it's just overall a good movie. And I think that this film, while not bad, it's not terrible. Like, it's not the worst thing ever. But again, it's not like the best thing ever either. You know, it's kind of like an in-between. Like, it's good, it's okay, but I'm not... But realistically, will I ever watch this again? Probably not. Now, is that a problem? Not necessarily. I can say I enjoyed it. I had a decent time with it. But I feel like I'd catch myself rewatching the original Gladiator more than this one. Because also, I mean, obviously there's, like, the factor of, like, the iconic moments, the iconic scenes and lines that you can quote from that film. Like, obviously there's that, too. But again, as I said, again, it's just a good movie. And it's a better movie than this one. And... I don't know, it's hard to say, because I don't want to be so hard in this movie, because that's what I've been, like, this whole time. But, like... It's entertaining. I like the gore. I like how, like, kind of ridiculous some of the kills are. Like, I remember, Paul Mescal, like, he has these two swords. Like, he outsmarted this Roman, like, soldier that was, like, fighting in the Colosseum. And he has his sword, and he has the other soldier's sword, and he goes, "Ah!" And he, like, claps it in between his neck, and it just cleanly, completely cuts it off. It's ridiculous. The movie is really violent, and I like that. I like the amount of gore in it. Obviously, that's a plus. I mean, obviously, in a time like this, people are obviously very violent. And, I mean, people are still violent. But back then, it was even more, like people killing each other, like, literally being forced out into an arena full of thousands of people to kill each other. That was, like, the thing to watch back then, was watching people kill each other for everybody else's entertainment. Like, I think we've grown past that. I mean, obviously we have, like, MMA and boxing, but, like, they're not meant to kill each other, you know what I mean? Like, there's, like, underground cage fighting and, like, Fight Club and shit like that. Like, like, you could fight to the death with that one, and it might happen. And it might be encouraged. I don't know. Either way, there are some positives about this film. Again, Denzel didn't do a bad job. He did do decent. There were some scenes that I liked with him. I do think he did a good job as the villain, although I do think the villain could have been better. He did a good job. He wasn't a bad villain, by any means. I think Paul Mescal did a decent job. Actually, I think he did kind of, like, embody, like, he tried to, like, kind of replicate the Russell Crowe type performance, right? I think he was, like, kind of trying to imitate his posture, his, you know, his mannerisms, his language, like the way he would talk. I think he did that pretty decently, because obviously he's his son, so it makes sense that he would try to replicate Russell Crowe's performance, because, you know, Makes sense. And overall, I think, like, the final fight was funny because it was so quick, you know, because I feel like there wasn't a lot of tension in the last fight, because there was, like, tension in the, as I said, in the first movie's fight. But in this one, it's like, oh, he's an old man with a sword fighting a fucking soldier, like a 28-year-old soldier, right? Like, he's not gonna win. And, like, the funny thing is, when it looked like he was gonna get him cornered, literally all he was doing, he had this, like, he had Maximus's armor on. He had Russell Crowe's armor on from the first movie. And Denzel Washington, he got him into like a river, and he, like, went, like, with his sword, right? But, like, he didn't, like, I don't know why he kept just going, like, he kept doing it. But, like, it was clearly not penetrating the armor at all. Like, it just kept boom, 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 boom. He just kept doing it, expecting something to change, right? Like, maybe move the sword, maybe go for the head. I don't know. No, just keep going, at his chest, and then eventually, Paul Mescal had enough time to grab a rock and go boom, and he hit him a few times with a rock, and then he cut Denzel's hand off, and then he sliced him open, and then his guts came out, which is cool. But, like, in a movie like this, you gotta cut the head off. Like, come on. Like, Execute, you're gonna cut his hand off, and you're not gonna cut his head off. I know that sounds kind of barbaric, but like come on now, he's like an evil villain, you know, that's trying to, like, destroy Rome, which, I mean, isn't that necessarily, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but maybe that's just up to me. But anyway, like, in a movie like this, like, doesn't it make sense to cut the villain's head off? I don't know, I'm just saying shit. I don't know. I just wanted violence, I guess. I'm like, yeah, I'll cut his head off. Anyway, with that being said, would I recommend this film? Sure. I mean, if you're a fan of the original, you should probably absolutely watch the first one before seeing this one, because it wouldn't really make a lot of sense. So I would highly recommend watching the first one. And if you already seen the first one and you remember it and you like it, I would recommend it. It is good, although if you're looking for, like, a new experience, if you're looking for, like, a story that's more original, I was honestly hoping for a more, like, a different Gladiator story altogether. I kind of wish it wasn't connected with the first film. I thought that would have been better. So if you're kind of like me, and we're kind of wishing it would be about a different Gladiator, it's just kind of the same movie again, but not as good. And if you don't really want to watch that, I don't blame you. So if you're looking for a different experience from the first film, you're not really going to get that here. But if you're okay with kind of just watching the same movie again, but not as good, that's fine. That's fine. You can watch it. And with that being said, I think I'd rate this film a 7 out of 10. I like this movie. I thought it was pretty good. If you're a fan of the first film, you probably should watch it. You might get some enjoyment. And, yeah, I think I've said what I say. I think I've said my piece. So, guys, hope you like this video. Share with friends. Subscribe. Notifications on. Comment on how much you liked it. But you guys know, because I don't really say that. What I really meant to say was, if you guys hated this video, unsubscribe, hate me in the comments. And I'm Ridley HD, off to fight for the Republic. Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy! You know what I mean? Fucking stupid.
So, another thing about this movie, like, it's weird. So, in the Colosseum, if you didn't know this, they had naval battles. And in these naval battles, they would fill the Colosseum with water. And it was incredible. It was, like, really advanced technology. The Romans were really advanced with, like, almost everything they did. It was incredible how ahead of the curve and how, like, you know, ahead of their time they were in regards to, you know, technology and buildings and stuff like that. But I have a question here. And you know, oh, hello there. Good to see you. Anyway, disregarding what? That's not a fan. That's a person I know. But anyway, as I was saying, back to this. Sharks. I don't know how you would be able to transport sharks, from great whites especially, from wherever they are, all the way to Rome. Because you need to keep them in a tank, to keep them alive, by the way, because they can't breathe. The water goes through them. And they didn't have fish tanks in, I don't remember the exact time period, but 2,000 years ago. They didn't have that. How do you get the sharks in the Colosseum? It makes no sense. I don't know, am I just yelling at a brick wall here? I don't understand. It's just confusing, okay? Don't blame me. Sharks were not in the Colosseum. No matter how many times I try to tell you, which is once, but it doesn't matter. It's a lie.
Does that make this a sharksploitation movie?
Is this a sharksploitation movie? I don't think so. But maybe it does in somebody else's mind. But not mine.